why is management innovation so critical to competitiveness? Why is this kind of innovation different from the other kinds of innovation that we more often talk about? And how can you become a management innovator in your business? That's what Gary is here to talk to us about today. Please welcome Gary Hamel.
Well, thanks, and pleasure to be here and have the chance to share a few ideas with you this morning. Jeff gave me a great setup, a great introduction to what I'm going to talk about. I've spent probably the last 20 years or so of my life trying to help large companies around the world learn how to innovate. Now, we have not been paying much attention to management innovation. Most companies I know today, they have a pretty disciplined process for product development. They have a pretty good, a lot of energy around operational innovation and improvement. Some are even getting better at strategic innovation. And yet, there's very little talk. I know of no company that has a disciplined, organized process for management innovation. And management innovation creates advantage under a variety of different circumstances. I'll mention only one. It creates advantage when the principles upon which it is based are contrary. When all of your competitors are scratching their heads trying to understand how in the world could they do that. You think about Microsoft scratching their head. How do you develop software in an open source model? They have about 4,000 people who've been working on Vista, the world's most complex development project, kind of on a scale of the Airbus A380. And it's almost impossible to imagine how you could do that with volunteers. The same problem, as I argued, beset America's car makers. Last year, Toyota's Japanese employees, in 1 year, submitted 540,000 suggestions for improvement. But it was based on a very new, a very kind of radically different management principle. So the first thing is, if you want to be an innovator of any sort, but certainly if you want to be a management innovator, you have to commit yourself to a worthy problem. Innovators are romantics. They are not asking, what is best practice? They're asking, how good could this be? I think it's dangerous today. We seem to assume that however good a P&G or GE or somebody else is doing it, that's as good as it can be. But you have to be romantic. You have to have a passion for helping your organization learn how to do things that really no company in the world today is very good at. Most of you probably remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let me talk to you for a moment about Gary's hierarchy of capabilities, of human capabilities. And it starts kind of at the bottom with obedience, employees who show up, do as they're told, follow the rules. You certainly expect that. Above that is diligence, people who work hard, stay till the job is done, stay focused. And above that, I have intellect, people who are taking responsibility for their own skills, who are constantly learning, who bring best practices to work every day. Now, these capabilities, my friends, I will tell you, these are becoming global commodities. I can buy these human capabilities in Bangalore or Guangzhou or Manila or somewhere for just about nothing. And as I look forward, I don't think there's hardly a company on the planet, certainly not in the Western world with our cost structure, that's going to be able to defend their place in the world if this is all they're getting out of their employees, the obedience, the diligence, the intellect. So going up that hierarchy above intellect, we have initiative, people who will take responsibility for a problem and opportunity before you ask them, who are not bound by a narrow definition of their job, who are constantly saying, how do I do more, how do I help? Above that is human creativity. Folks who lie awake at night saying, gee, how do we do this in a fundamentally different way? What do I learn from other industries? Where's the chance for radical innovation in this product, this service? And then finally, at the top, you have people who bring their passion and their zeal to work, for whom their job is not only intellectually meaningful, it is indeed even spiritually meaningful to them. Enormous meaning comes out of their work. Now, I'd like you to think if you attach some percentages, if you like, to that hierarchy, where at the bottom, you're getting 20% of a human being's capabilities. If all they bring is obedience, at the top, it's 120%. If you got the full range, that proverbial 120%. I'd like you to think about the people who show up to work every day in your company. And I'd like you to ask, what proportion of their total human capabilities are they bringing to work each day? And we've asked this question. We've done surveys on this, and the answer seems to be Most companies will say we reliably get about 50-55% of our employees' capabilities. And I can tell you that's not enough for the world that lies ahead. This says that we are squandering prodigious amounts of human creativity and passion and initiative in our organizations. And I think if we're going to change this, we are going to have to literally invert our leadership model. Leadership can no longer be about how do I get people to serve the organization's goals. Leadership has today to be about how do I create organizations that allow people to serve their goals while simultaneously serving customers and creating wealth. The second challenge, I think, in being an innovator of any sort, but certainly in being a management innovator, is taking the trouble and the time to deconstruct the beliefs you already have, to challenge the dogmas and the orthodoxies that you already have. One of the top things that people believe in common about change is that it takes a crisis to change a large company, and it takes a change in leadership. Now, here's the really subtle thing about challenging your management orthodoxies. You have to be able to distinguish between what is true in a kind of timeless way and what is only true for now. Because if you think about those beliefs, it takes a crisis to change, it takes a change in leadership, that is empirically true. The evidence suggests that it's absolutely true. And yet it would have also been true 100 and some years ago to say that human beings couldn't fly. But that wasn't a timeless truth. That was just true for now. So when you see one of these things that appears to be true, what you want to ask is this some law of physics? Is this an act of God? Or is this truth merely an artifact of the way we've chosen to organize and lead? And if we make different choices, can we change this reality? Because after all, we'd rather it didn't take a crisis to change a large company. You know, it's amazing. Most large companies seem to have borrowed their change model from poorly governed third world dictatorships, right? I mean, how do you change policy in Zimbabwe, right, or whatever? You have to have a coup. You decapitate the leadership. You get somebody new in. I mean, surely we can do better than that. And so you ask, does it take a crisis? Well, yes, but why? How have the choices we made led to that reality? Well, the fact is pretty simple, my friends. Look at any social system around the world. And in any social system where the power to change is highly concentrated at the top, you will not find a resilient or innovative system. It's called the Soviet Union. And in many organizations today where the power to set strategy, the power to set direction is highly concentrated at the top, that's not going to be a resilient, innovative company. Third thing I think that's important, if you want to be an innovator of any sort, but particularly a management innovator, you have to be willing to embrace new principles. In any sphere of human endeavor, you ultimately reach a point where you can't solve the new problems using the old principles. We couldn't solve the problem of democracy using the principles of feudalism. And the primary principle there was the divine right of kings and queens to rule. You can't build a democracy on those principles. We couldn't understand the subatomic world using the principles of Newtonian physics. Just can't be done. We had to invent an entirely new paradigm around quantum mechanics. And I believe that today we are at the same point in management. The principles we have typically correspond to a set of problems we're trying to solve. And one of the things you might ask is, what problem was modern management invented to solve? The review process, the budgeting process, how we hire, how we promote, big leaders appointing little leaders. I mean, what was the fundamental problem that management was designed to solve? Because after all, management itself is just one more technology. And the answer to that, the fundamental problem for which it was designed was the problem of efficiency and replication. Right? Doing the same thing over and over again with perfect replicability, whether that was building a Model T or building a Pentium chip or serving a customer in a retailer or approving a bank loan. How do you do it with minimum variation, maximum standardization over time? And yet that's not the problem we're wrestling with today. We're wrestling with the problem of how do you build companies that are adaptable? How do you build companies that are innovative? How do you build companies that are enormously engaging places to work, that deserve to have people bring their creativity and their passion? Because you think about those unique human gifts, the passion, the creativity, the initiative, you cannot command those things. You can command obedience. You can command diligence. You can't command. These are things that people either bring or don't bring as gifts to your company every day. Companies are filled with allocational rigidities. And by the way, this is probably the single biggest impediment to innovation in most companies. It is not a lack of creativity, but it's the difficulty that you have in getting small amounts of capital and time to work on fundamentally new things. You know, and this is not a board level problem. I mean, somebody at the top can go out and do $1 billion acquisition. It's you and your investment bankers. That's easy to do. What's hard to do is 4 levels down to get $100,000 in OPEX and 4 or 5 people and move them from project A to project B. That's like a dental extraction in most companies. And for all kinds of reasons you know well, we measure our prestige and power by our headcount, our budgets. But the kind of single deepest problem there is this. In most companies, there is a monopsony on new ideas. A monopoly is one seller. A monopsony is one buyer. And in most companies, if I have a new idea 4 levels down, there's only one place to go with it. It's up the chain of command. Or at best, I might have 2 choices, some kind of CEO slush fund or something. But usually up the chain of command, if it doesn't meet my boss's objectives, his or her definition of the business, it doesn't get funded. So if you want an analogy here, think about Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, there are dozens, hundreds of angel investors, venture capital companies. An entrepreneur will go to many different places before getting funded, typically. But imagine if Silicon Valley had one VC company headed by Bill Gates. Right? How much innovation would there be? You know, we would have never had YouTube and MySpace and Google and a whole bunch of other things. And yet that is the reality. Most companies, in the way they treat resource allocation, they are more like the Soviet Union than they are like Silicon Valley. Think about the Grameen Bank. Some of you may know this. It's a bank in Bangladesh. It makes micro loans. They've made about 4 million micro loans, typically a few $100s. There is no paperwork. There is no collateral. Their default rate is as good as any big commercial bank. The loans are made to syndicates of 5 women, almost always women, who use it to start maybe basket weaving or they raise poultry. On average, these women succeed in raising their families' incomes by more than 50%. And the bank itself is owned by the borrowers. Enormously successful model. So answer me this. Why can a middle-aged woman in Bangladesh living in desperate poverty, why is it easier for her to get a bit of money to experiment with than it is for the average first-level employee in a Fortune 500 company? Right? It just doesn't seem right to me. And yet that's where I look for an example. Let me give you another example. One of the most profound things that is happening today on the web is that the web and technology in general is democratizing the tools of creativity. This, my friends, is an amazing historical development. Throughout most human history, most people could not afford the tools of creativity. They could not afford the canvas and the paints, the stone and the chisel, the parchment and the paper. Throughout all the millennia, an enormous amount of human creativity has gone to the grave unexploited. I mean, even a couple of decades ago, if you wanted to produce video, you needed a high quality, a $75,000 camera, $1 million production studio. Today, there is no longer any monopoly on the tools of creativity. So this is what I see. And yet what I see in companies is that very few first-level employees have been given the tools for business innovation. Last thing I'll recommend to you in terms of management innovation, and that is you have to be experimental. Right? As you've embraced new principles, as you've embraced new challenges, as you learn from the fringe, challenge your orthodoxy, at the end of the day, I can tell you, you don't have to start a new company, and you don't have to be A.G. Lafley or Jeff Immelt to be a bold management innovator. So I don't know who's going to create the future of management. I don't know who's going to build the companies that will be the world's most innovative a decade or 2 or 3 from now. But I can tell you it's going to take as much innovation in management as it takes in products or services or anywhere else.